Alright, so really quickly before I get into the video, I have to make this clear. These are not images of the Benin earthworks. This is an image of a Fulani village, this is an image of Singbozaredo, this is concept art of Baghdad in the 9th century, I think, and this is an image of a Thai moat. Walls have historically been the most straightforward and yet generally effective way to keep out who you want kept out, and in who you want in. As a result, such defensive fortifications were used across the world, West Africa included, and out of all the walls in West Africa, no, probably the world, those of Benin are among the greatest. In this video, I'm going to outline the Benin walls, their history, and the debate surrounding them. Throughout our history, the wall has been a standard feature for West African cities of multiple different cultures. Of these, the Walls of Benin are probably the most famous, yet these structures aren't actually walls. The quote walls of Benin are better described not as walls, but as a network of ramparts, ditches, or earthworks locally called iya. Archaeological work in the 70s and 80s shows the total length of these iya exceeded 16,000 kilometers or 10,000 miles, all within a region of 6,500 square kilometers or 2,500 square miles. Now, while I hate making comparisons like this, in order to give an idea of the scale of the Benin earthworks, the Ming Wall, often referred to in discussion of the Great Wall of China, was about 9,000 kilometers, while the total Great Wall length was about 21,000 kilometers. So, as you can see, the Benin earthworks were larger than the Ming Wall, and while shorter than the total Great Wall's length, were not too far off. This video is going to focus on the earthworks found around Benin City. These iya are traditionally split into a third, second, and first wall, but I'm going to call them the outer, middle, and inner regions respectively. I'm going to focus on the middle and inner regions here because, unlike the outer region, these two form a single enclosure. The Benin City iya were dump ramparts, ditches with soil deposits that form ramparts which would slope at their natural angles of rest. Not accounting for erosion, by the time of a survey in the 60s, most of the outer iya were less than 7.6 meters or 25 feet tall from rampart top to ditch bottom, while the inner iya, about 11.6 kilometers or 7 miles in circumference, were usually over 15 meters or 50 feet deep. The inner earthwork had 9 wood gates that would have been under constant guard watch, and that would have functioned as toll booths. It was also reinforced by vegetation, and by the time European travelers arrived at Benin, it was filled with massive trees, and the inner ramparts also could have had thorny bushes. It's possible that the inner iya featured wooden reinforcements, which would have made the ramparts into a flatter shape more recognizable to us as a wall, but this is debated. The idea of wooden reinforcements mostly comes from an illustration by the Dutch physician Alfred Dapper, which depicts a mud wall assumed to be the inner iya being reinforced by crisscrossing wooden planks. Whether or not it's even valid to associate the depicted wall and the inner earthwork is debatable, and it's also noteworthy that Dapper never actually visited Benin, instead probably relying on another person's account. If wood was used, all evidence of it eroded and decomposed a long time ago, but it's possible. It's more likely that wood was used to ramify and prop up gate areas. By who, when, and why were these works built? As I hope I've already shown, we don't actually know a lot about the Benin iya, and their purpose and dates of construction are still being debated. Traditionally, the inner earthwork was built under Emperor or Oba Ewuare in the 15th century, while the outer earthworks under King Agula in the 13th century to protect from the attacks of enemy powers like Udo. This interpretation argues for military origins of Benin's wall, and it's backed by Benin's oral tradition, which, while having contrary accounts, consistently says the iya were meant for defense, and also by Ewuare's inner earthwork. Because of intense vegetation, climbing these inner iya would have been difficult, and the defending army would have also had an artificial high ground advantage. As Oserheim Osterelor says in his thesis, Military System of the Benin Kingdom, circa 1440 through 1897, at the time the construction of the earthwork began, Benin had no well-organized and heavily equipped army. Strategic thought was therefore focused on the best kind of fortification which will make it difficult for sustainable siege by the enemy. This is just one school of thought though, and tradition has been opposed by scholars. Graham Connah, who isn't fully against tradition, argues that only the inner earthworks built, or according to some historians, deepened by Ewuare likely had military purposes. Connah instead argues that, aside from Eware's inner, probably defenses, the Benin earthworks were actually village enclosures who owed allegiance to a central authority that merged to create a single urban unit by the time Ewuare came up. Connah's idea kind of reflects a popular idea for the origins of Benin City, that it was a fusion of agricultural communities who used their enclosures as farmland borders, but not military defense. The idea has some support. For example, the non-inner ditches are relatively shallow, a fact that might support the idea that their purpose was not actually military. That said, it's important to keep in mind that this doesn't mean the outer earthworks couldn't have still been defenses, just that defense wasn't their focus. Then there's Patrick Darling's theory, which strongly opposes tradition. Darling argues that the Benin earthworks were built during a pre-dynastic period before the Obas, the dynasty that Agula and Ewuare belonged to, became a significant power. Instead, he says they were built by a bunch of preceding groups that the Ogas conquered. Darling basically says that the oral tradition was Oba propaganda, meant to legitimize their reigns over the region. For evidence of non-military earthwork purposes, Darling made a sequence of agricultural border earthwork construction that resulted in Benin cities and points towards the fact that lots of outer settlements have earthworks, most deep when running alongside neighbors, an observation he says indicates property-driven reason behind their construction and not military reason. Now, I'm not going to take any stance on this. Many of these theories rely on heavy assumptions, as many historical theories do, and there isn't enough evidence to really back any of these conclusively, so I don't think that we should rush to any sort of decisive this is the correct theory. That said, there is decent evidence to back the idea that Benin's inner earthworks were military and built under a powerful dynasty. They would have needed a calculated 5,000 workers working 10 hours a day, 7 days a week to be finished in one dry season, or about 9 months. These calculations also measure digging time, not including the amount of time needed to actually deposit mud, increases in time required to move around as ditches got deeper, or time needed for clearance. Just being able to mobilize this workforce would have probably required some sort of considerable power in the region. Archaeologists have also proven that at least parts of the inner earthworks were built over pre-existing buildings, which, using charcoal samples, were probably up during the 14th to 15th centuries. This points towards the inner Iya following some sort of master plan that shows intentional creation, which again might point towards some sort of political power in the region. Again though, this is all hypothetical. Right now, a lack of more detailed oral history, available writings, and datable archaeological evidence means we can't really make a chronology, so we don't really know enough to say what order the earthworks were built in. It's possible we'll never get answers to these questions. Aside from the destruction caused by the 1897 British invasion, new construction projects in Nigeria continue to result in Iya destruction, while many local residents seem more content to use their ditches as garbage disposal than to preserve them. People just often don't respect archaeological sites. Hopefully, we'll be able to do more work to reveal whatever information there may be left hidden within these and other earthworks in Africa, before they are destroyed and their legacy forgotten.